We often talk about resilience as if it's a shield, something we hold up to protect ourselves, something that proves we're strong enough to face whatever comes our way, but I've learned that resilience is not the armor. Real strength begins long before resilience shows up. It begins in the moment we allow ourselves to be seen, not as unbreakable, not as perfect, but as human. There was a time in my life when I thought strength meant pretending everything was fine. Wearing a smile even when my world felt like it was collapsing, pushing through pain without letting anyone know it existed, and for a while it worked. I looked strong on the outside, but inside I was exhausted, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I was living like a fortress, tall walls, locked gates, and no windows. Then life hit me with something I couldn't hide, a moment so overwhelming that the mask shattered. I couldn't pretend anymore. All the walls I built came crashing down. And in that moment, one I thought would break me, I discovered something I never expected to find, the power of vulnerability. See, we think vulnerability is weakness because it feels like stepping out into the open without a shield. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say, I'm hurting, or I'm scared, or I don't know what to do next. That honesty doesn't make you fragile, it makes you real, and real is powerful. Let me give you an example. A young woman once told me about her journey recovering from a devastating accident. She said the hardest part wasn't the physical pain or the rehabilitation. It was looking at her family and whispering, I don't feel strong today. She thought they would lose hope. Instead, they held her tighter. They told her they didn't need her to be strong every moment. They just needed her to keep trying. Her vulnerability didn't weaken her. It connected her to the people who helped her heal. That's the beautiful truth. Vulnerability creates connection, and connection fuels resilience. When we hide behind perfection, we shut people out. But when we show our cracks, our fears, our doubts, we invite others to stand beside us. And when life knocks us down, having someone beside you can be the difference between giving up and getting back up. Resilience may be the ability to rise again, but vulnerability is the permission to fall. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you're not admitting defeat. You're admitting that you're human, and in that humanity lies strength deeper than anything toughness alone can offer. Every one of us will face moments where the path ahead is unclear, where the weight feels too heavy, where the future seems too far away. And in those moments, don't ask yourself, how do I stay strong? Ask instead, who can I share this moment with? Because strength multiplied, even by one other person, is extraordinary. So today, I want you to release the idea that you have to carry everything alone. Let go of the belief that strength means silence. Let go of the myth that resilience is about pretending. True strength is this, standing in your truth, even when that truth feels uncomfortable. It's opening your heart, even when fear tells you to close it. It's asking for help, even when pride whispers you don't need it. And if you're struggling right now, if you're tired, overwhelmed, or quietly breaking under the weight of expectations, then hear this, you are allowed to feel. You are allowed to falter, you are allowed to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is not the opposite of strength. It is the beginning of it, and when you embrace it, fully, unapologetically, you don't just become resilient, you become unstoppable. True strength begins with vulnerability, not perfection. We grow up believing strength is about never bending, never breaking, never letting anyone see us struggle. We're taught to straighten our backs, hold our breath, and pretend we can handle everything on our own. But that version of strength is a mask, polished on the outside, hollow on the inside. Real strength is born in the moments when we choose honesty over performance, when we allow ourselves to be seen without filters, when we stop pretending and start living with truth. Vulnerability is not the absence of strength, it is the birthplace of it. There comes a moment in every person's life where pretending becomes too heavy to carry. Maybe it's a loss, a setback, a moment of failure, or a season of overwhelming pressure. And suddenly, the facade you worked so hard to maintain begins to crack. You realize that holding everything together alone is not strength, it's isolation. In that split second where the mask slips, you get to choose. Do you reinforce the wall, or do you let someone see what's really behind it? That decision changes everything. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you choose truth over image, and truth is powerful because it opens doors that perfection keeps locked. Think about the times you've connected most deeply with someone. It wasn't when they told you their life was flawless. It was when they said, "I'm struggling, I'm scared, or I'm trying my best." Vulnerability invites understanding, it builds bridges, it creates trust, it shows others that they are not alone, and it reminds you that you're not alone either. People often misunderstand vulnerability. They think it means crying in front of others or exposing your wounds. But vulnerability is much deeper. It's the courage to say, "I don't have all the answers." It's the bravery to admit you're hurting. It's the honesty to acknowledge your limitations. It's the willingness to be authentic even when you fear judgment. Vulnerability is standing in your truth without editing it to make it more acceptable. Perfection may look impressive, but it doesn't inspire anyone. What inspires people is someone who dares to be real, someone who shows that strength doesn't mean being unbreakable. It means continuing forward even with the cracks. When you share your truth, you give others permission to share theirs. You create a chain reaction of openness, courage, and healing. You become a reminder that strength isn't about being untouchable, it's about being truthful. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go, filled with the weight of expectations, fear of judgment, and the pressure to seem strong. At some point, you will get tired. Vulnerability is the moment when you finally set the backpack down. At first it feels uncomfortable, maybe even scary. You feel exposed without your armor, but then something remarkable happens. You begin to breathe, you begin to connect, you begin to understand that the weight you were carrying never defined your worth or your strength. When you choose vulnerability, you choose growth, you choose healing, you choose courage, you choose to let people help you, support you, and walk alongside you, and that support becomes the foundation of true resilience. You stop living behind walls, and you start living in truth. Your relationships deepen, your confidence strengthens, your heart opens, you become grounded, centered, and unshakable, not because you hide your struggles, but because you honor them. True strength is not found in pretending you're unbreakable. True strength is found in embracing your humanity. It's in saying, "This is who I am," flaws, fears, doubts, and all. When you live with that level of honesty, you stand taller. You breathe easier. You become stronger, not in spite of your vulnerability, but because of it. Vulnerability builds deeper connection and fuels resilience. So often we believe that sharing our struggles will push people away, that opening up will make others see us as weak, fragile, or incapable. But the truth is the opposite. When we allow others to see what's really happening inside us, the fears we carry, the doubts we battle, the pain we try to hide, we create a bond that cannot be formed through perfection. People don't connect with your polished edges, they connect with your honest moments. Vulnerability turns strangers into supporters, friends into lifelines, and obstacles into shared journeys. It is the doorway through which real human connection enters. Think about the people you feel closest to. It's not the ones who seem perfect and untouchable. It's the ones who have been brave enough to sit with you and say, "I've been there too," or "I understand," or "You don't have to go through this alone." Their strength didn't lie in their flawless image, it lay in their willingness to share their story, and when they did, you didn't think less of them. You felt closer to them, you trusted them more, you felt safe with them. That's what vulnerability does. It removes the distance between us. When we hide everything, we build walls to protect our hearts, but those walls also block the very connection we crave. We end up feeling lonely even when surrounded by people. And loneliness makes challenges feel heavier, pain feel sharper, and fear feel bigger. But the moment we allow even one person inside those walls, the burden becomes lighter. Sharing your story doesn't just help you, it helps others realize they aren't alone in theirs. Your vulnerability becomes a gift, a guide, and a source of strength for someone else. Resilience isn't built in isolation. You don't grow stronger by pretending nothing affects you. You grow stronger by allowing yourself to feel, to struggle, to fall, and then letting others help you rise. When you share your truth, you create a network of support, and support is a powerful force. It keeps you standing when your legs are shaking. It reminds you of who you are when your confidence is fading. It holds you together when life is trying to pull you apart. That's why vulnerability fuels resilience. It becomes the foundation of your strength. There is a young man who once shared his story of battling depression. For years, he hid it behind jokes and forced smiles. He thought admitting his pain would make people lose respect for him, but the more he hid it, the heavier it grew. One day, he finally opened up to a close friend. His voice shook, his hands trembled, he expected judgment, but instead, his friend put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Thank you for telling me, I'm here for you." That simple moment of vulnerability changed the direction of his healing. He realized he didn't have to fight alone. His resilience didn't come from the years he hid his pain, it came from the moment he shared it. Vulnerability doesn't just deepen relationships with others, it deepens your relationship with yourself. When you stop pretending and start acknowledging your feelings, you begin to understand yourself better. You learn what you need, what you value, what you fear, and what hurts you. That emotional awareness helps you handle challenges with clarity and courage instead of shame and confusion. Vulnerability teaches you that emotions are not enemies. They are signals guiding you toward healing and growth. And there's something powerful that happens when you accept your truth without hiding it. You become unshakable. Not because you're invincible, but because you're supported. Not because you never fall, but because you no longer fall alone. Connection is one of the strongest forms of protection you can have in this life. It gives you resilience that doesn't rely on toughness but on togetherness. When you share your struggles, you create a space where others feel safe to share theirs, and together you walk through challenges that would have broken you apart in silence. Vulnerability is not a crack in your strength, it is the doorway to it. It is how resilience grows not just in you, but around you. It's how you turn pain into connection, fear into courage, and struggle into support. In opening your heart, you don't weaken it, you give it more hands to hold it steady. Asking for help is an act of bravery, not failure. Many people grow up believing that independence is the ultimate sign of strength, that needing assistance somehow makes your journey less worthy or your character less powerful. But the truth is that asking for help requires a level of courage that staying silent never will. It asks you to confront your pride, your fear of judgment, and the lie that you must carry every burden alone. It is far easier to pretend you're fine than to say, "I need support," but choosing the harder path, the honest path, is where real bravery begins. When life becomes overwhelming, we often instinctively withdraw. We bury our struggles behind routine, behind small talk, behind the idea that we don't want to be a burden to others, but you were never meant to walk through every storm alone. Asking for help doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. It means you understand that your strength doesn't come from isolating yourself, but from allowing others to stand beside you when the weight becomes too much. There's a moment in every person's life when the world feels too heavy to manage alone. You might be facing emotional pain, financial struggles, health challenges, or simply the exhaustion of trying to hold everything together. Yet because society glorifies the image of the strong one, you keep quiet, you push through, hoping that no one notices the cracks forming beneath your smile, but pretending doesn't heal you, pretending isolates you. Pretending keeps you trapped. True bravery is found when you look at someone you trust and say, I can't do this alone. People often forget that helping each other is part of being human. Think about the last time someone asked you for help. Did you see them as weak? Of course not. You probably felt honored, trusted, and grateful that they allowed you to be there for them. But when it's our turn, we hesitate. We think asking for help is admitting defeat. In reality, it's admitting strength. It means you're brave enough to acknowledge your limits and humble enough to reach out. Imagine someone climbing a steep mountain. They slip, lose their footing, and are left hanging onto a single rock. Nearby, climbers reach out their hands. To grab those hands is not weakness, it's survival, it's wisdom. It's the decision that says, I value my life enough to accept support. Life is no different. When you reach your limit, when the climb becomes too steep, when your grip starts to slip, asking for help is the hand that pulls you back to safety. There's a powerful shift that happens when you accept help. You begin to realize you're not alone and you were never meant to be. Humans are wired for connection, cooperation, and support. Some of the strongest, most successful, and most resilient people in the world didn't rise because they were self-sufficient. They rose because they understood the importance of community. They asked for guidance, mentorship, comfort, encouragement, and assistance. Not once, many times, over and over again, and not because they were weak, but because they were smart enough to know they didn't have to walk their path alone. When you ask for help, you also give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes a light for someone hiding in their own darkness. Your honesty becomes the door someone else needs to open. Your willingness to reach out becomes the reason someone else finds the strength to speak up. You never know how your request for help might heal someone else's silence, and the truth is this: every time you ask for help, you grow. You grow in self-awareness because you acknowledge what you need. You grow in humility because you accept that you're human. You grow in resilience because you allow yourself to rest. You grow in strength because you let others share your load. You grow in connection because you invite people into your world. Asking for help is not giving up, it's refusing to give up. It's choosing to continue when you don't have all the answers. It's choosing life, choosing connection, choosing healing. And when you learn to ask for help with confidence instead of shame, you step into a life where strength is no longer about enduring silently, but about rising with support. That is courage. That is wisdom. And that is true strength. Resilience is the ability to rise again, but vulnerability is the permission to fall. So many people focus only on getting back up, on being strong, on keeping their heads high no matter what life throws at them. But what we often overlook is that before you rise, there is always a fall, a moment where you break, stumble, or collapse under the weight of everything you've been trying so hard to carry, and that moment isn't a failure, it's a beginning. Because unless you allow yourself to fall, you never truly allow yourself to learn, to feel, or to heal. Vulnerability gives you the space to be human before you try to be heroic. Falling feels scary because it exposes all the fears we hide, the fear of not being enough, the fear of letting people down, the fear that we might not recover. But pretending you never fall doesn't make you strong, it makes you exhausted. You cannot build resilience on top of suppression. You cannot rise if you're denying the moments when life knocks you off your feet. The world tells you to toughen up, to keep pushing, to never show weakness. But true resilience begins the moment you finally say, I'm not okay right now, and let the truth spill out without shame. Think about a tree during a storm. Its branches whip back and forth, its trunk bends under the pressure, and sometimes a branch snaps. But the tree survives. Because it bends, it does not resist the wind, it allows itself to move with it. Vulnerability is that bending. It's the flexibility that keeps your inner world from breaking completely. When you allow yourself to fall, you're not giving in. You're allowing life to move through you instead of breaking you apart inside. There's a quiet power in admitting that you don't have everything under control. It opens the door to acceptance, and acceptance is the first step toward rebuilding. When you deny the fall, you deny the opportunity to rise with clarity, strength, and purpose. Vulnerability lets you sit in the discomfort long enough to understand it. It lets you acknowledge your pain instead of burying it, and that acknowledgement becomes the foundation for real resilience. Resilience is not about bouncing back instantly, it's about rising slowly, intentionally, and honestly. And you cannot rise honestly if you pretend the fall didn't happen. Some of the strongest people in the world are strong not because they never struggled, but because they allowed themselves to fully experience the struggle. They cried, they questioned, they admitted they were scared, and then they rebuilt. Their resilience wasn't forged in denial, it was forged in vulnerability. Imagine someone who refuses to admit they're tired. They keep going, pushing themselves long past their limit. Eventually, their body breaks down. That's what emotional denial does. When you force yourself to be strong all the time, you eventually shatter. But when you allow yourself to fall, when you allow rest, tears, and reflection, you prevent that breaking. You create the space you need to recover. Vulnerability protects you from collapsing under pressure because it acknowledges the pressure before it destroys you. Falling is not the opposite of resilience, it is part of resilience. It teaches you humility, it teaches you patience, it teaches you to trust the process rather than force it. When you fall, you discover what truly matters, who truly supports you, and what parts of your life are worth rebuilding. You gain perspective, strength, and emotional depth that you could never develop if you pretended to be untouchable. Some of the most beautiful comebacks in life happen after the most painful falls, not because the person avoided vulnerability, but because they embraced it. They let themselves break open in order to rebuild stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. They didn't rise because they ignored the fall, they rose because they honored it. So remember this, resilience is your rise, but vulnerability is your permission to fall. Give yourself that permission, allow yourself to feel, to falter, to collapse if you must, because when you rise again, and you will, you'll rise with a depth of strength that only honesty can create. Embracing vulnerability makes you unstoppable. At first, that idea may seem contradictory. We're conditioned to believe that vulnerability is something to hide, something to avoid, something that exposes us to danger. We associate vulnerability with fragility, with breaking, with being hurt. But the truth is that vulnerability is where your greatest strength is born. When you stop hiding your fears, your doubts, and your insecurities, you stop giving them the power to control you. You step into a version of yourself that is authentic, courageous, and impossible to break, because you're no longer pretending to be something you're not. When you embrace vulnerability, you stop living for the approval of others. You stop shaping your life around how you want to be perceived and start shaping it around who you truly are. That shift creates a level of freedom most people never experience. Think about how much energy it takes to maintain an image, keeping your guard up, covering up your mistakes, silencing your emotions, pretending everything is fine even when it's not. That isn't strength, that's fear wearing a mask of confidence. But vulnerability removes the mask. It allows you to show up fully, without the burden of pretending, and that authenticity becomes a force that nothing can touch. People often fear vulnerability because it means letting go of control. But you don't gain real control by pretending. You gain it by understanding yourself deeply. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you learn exactly what scares you, triggers you, motivates you, and strengthens you. You gain clarity about your emotional landscape, and that clarity gives you the ability to move through life intentionally instead of reactively. You're no longer trapped by the fear of judgment because you've already accepted yourself. And acceptance is one of the most powerful shields a person can have. When you know who you are and you're no longer running from your own truth, criticism loses its force, failure stops defining you. Setbacks don't shatter you. Why? Because you've built your strength on honesty, not on illusion. You're grounded, you're whole, you're real, and real strength cannot be taken away. Embracing vulnerability also transforms the way you handle challenges. Instead of seeing difficulties as threats, you begin to see them as opportunities for growth. You become more adaptable, more teachable, and more resilient. You're not afraid to ask questions, to seek guidance, to admit when you don't know something. That openness accelerates your growth because you're not held back by the need to appear perfect. Vulnerable people learn faster, heal quicker, and rise stronger because they face life directly instead of hiding from it. There's also a profound sense of connection that comes from vulnerability when you share your real story, your fears, your struggles, your victories. You inspire others to do the same. You become a safe place for people. You become a source of comfort, courage, and hope, and connection is a powerful form of strength. It creates communities, support systems, and relationships that anchor you through every storm. Vulnerability doesn't isolate you, it builds bridges that deepen your life and widen your world. Think of every great leader, every transformational figure, every person who has inspired humanity. They weren't admired because they were perfect. They were admired because they were real. They spoke about their failures, their dark moments, their fears, and their uncertainties. Their vulnerability didn't diminish them, it elevated them. It made their success meaningful. It made their message powerful. It made their resilience believable. Their vulnerability is what made them unstoppable. And you have that same power. When you embrace vulnerability, you stop being controlled by fear, fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough. Instead, you start living boldly, speaking honestly, and standing firmly in your truth. Vulnerability gives you courage to take risks, to pursue dreams, to step into the unknown with an open heart. And that is how unstoppable people are made, not through perfection, but through the willingness to be seen, heard, and felt exactly as they are. So remember, embracing vulnerability doesn't weaken you, it frees you, it strengthens you, it transforms you, it turns your authenticity into your greatest superpower and your humanity into your greatest strength. When you stop hiding and start living with your whole heart, you move through life with a confidence that nothing can shake. You become unstoppable, not because you have no fears, but because your fears no longer own you.